It brought them a kind of fame that is really hard to imagine or define. Well, last week I spoke with the former Beatle George Harrison. We had a long conversation. We talked about what his life was like at the 7:45 right now. George Harrison, one of the great superstars of all time, the former Beatle. He's also a movie producer. And here is a look at a piece of Time Bandits, George Harrison's new movie. Watch.
It's Robin Hood.
Say good morning, you scum.
Good morning. You're all robbers.
Oh, the
then,
best, Mr. Hood.
Jolly good. And you're a robber, are you? Jolly good. And do you enjoy robbing then?
Well, it helps pay the rent, sir.
Jolly good. And you're a robber too, are you? How long have you been a robber?
4'1".
Good Lord. Jolly good. 4'1".
Yes.
Well, that is a long time, isn't it? Well, now, I hear you've made a pretty good haul.
Well, see for yourself, sir.
Hey. Crikey. I mean, I've been in robbing for years, but I've never seen anything like this. Crumbs. And you acquired all this by yourselves?
Well, it was a good day, Mr. Hood.
Jolly good day.
Unusual movie with an unusual cast. I had the pleasure of talking with George Harrison at some length last week about not only his movie, but life with the Beatles. Here's our conversation with George Harrison. George, you live what appears to be quite a private life. How much of that is a reaction to the absolute opposite of what your life was years ago during the Beatles? It was so intense and it was so public. How much of this is a reaction to that?
I think it's more or less total reaction, really, because that time, you know, over a period of probably 6 or 7 years, at least, we didn't seem to have a moment, you know, when we weren't being photographed or interviewed or even outside the houses we lived, you know, there was always people, press. And it was so intense, you know, that it was a concentrated sort of type of exposure, and I think that I really overdosed on the fame of the Beatles, you know. I mean, that was enough for me, you know, actually. Yeah. If it was a good experience to have, but at the same time, you know, it's not the be-all and end-all of life to be somebody famous, and you know, I prefer some quiet, simple things.
You said one time, I read, you described those years as 4 sane people in the midst of madness. Were you? That's true. Were you ever frightened by it? Was it ever frightening, or?
It was terrifying at times. I mean, we were all pretty naive. Unfortunately, it was at a time before, you know, before all the hijackings and that sort of terrorism and stuff that's gone on now. But we used to be, the 4 of us, just with 2 roadies, you know, 2 road managers, one with the equipment, one with the suits. And that was it. I mean, nowadays people go on the road with yeah. Security, truckloads of equipment and all this sort of stuff. So,
was it fun though? The impression was that it was 4 guys, young guys having a great time, having a ball, because you just created this fabulous impression of having a good time and everything. How wrong was that?
Well, that was quite right to begin with. I mean, it was absolutely right. By the time we first came to America, it was. I mean, it was just a novelty, you know, just to be natural and cute, and that everybody seemed to like us, you know. It was easy. All we did was just be 4 cheeky lads, and they loved it. And at that time, it was fun, you know, traveling, everybody giving us attention, and the records all selling, and it was wonderful. But then it just became too much.
People couldn't really
too much.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, just too much of anything, really. You know, you overdose on it.
A lot of people, I mean, millions of people have tried for years and did try for years for you guys to get back together again, and yet you didn't, obviously. And people couldn't understand why you wouldn't get together again. Can you explain why they didn't understand?
Well, you know, the simplest way of saying is like when you grow up in a family and everybody grows up and they all leave home and the brothers and sisters all go and get married and lead their own lives, you know, and it's like really asking them to all go back and live with their mum and dad again. So you know, that's the simplest thing. You know, for us as individuals, we all had our own lives to lead, and you know, we have a lot of experiences other than being four people stuck in the same hotel room together that we had to live out.
After the Beatles, you went through a period, I understand, in the early 70s up into 74. It was a rugged, tough period for you. What was that period like, and how did you get yourself out of it? What did you do to pull yourself up and get yourself back on a, you know, more productive road?
You mean in the 70s?
Yeah.
Well, the 70s, for me, sort of started out as really the continuation of the 60s. I mean, although the Beatles was split in about 69, for me, it was important to, you know, all these songs that I'd been writing, to record them and to make solo albums. The music business sort of was going through a lot of changes, and I decided to become a gardener, actually.
You really love it, don't you? The gardening, yeah.
I do, yeah. I like the garden. It's sort of, well, you know, like Chauncey Gardner in the film Peter Sellers,
yeah.
being there. It's true, you know. In the garden, you see all the seasons come and go, and whatever you do can affect it all. But at the same time, the flowers don't answer you back. Don't give you no trouble. Very nice.
Do you miss any of that? Do you miss any of the old days, or?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. You know, I mean, they're all there in memory, but, you know, don't look back. I think past is gone, now canst not that recall, and future is not, may not be at all, but present is, you see. That's the only thing that exists, is the present, and it's, there's enough happening right now for me to, you know, to be enjoying myself.
Have you lost your taste for performing publicly? Paul does it, but you don't. Is that...
Well, I can understand the thrill it is to be in a band, you know. There's nothing greater than to be out there in a band when everything's happening and it, you know, the band's going together and it sounds good. But like you were mentioning about the pressure since the Beatles split is, you know, each person is expecting to see, you know, they want to see the Beatles. They don't really want to see Paul McCartney or George Harrison. They want to relive this dream about the Beatles. So that, you know, that puts a pressure on him. At the same time, those tours, you tend to be playing to a lot of people who are just out, you know, because it's what's happening in town. And so you get a lot of drunks and, you know, I don't know. I never enjoyed the last tour from that point of view.
Mm-hmm. Because it just wasn't music.
Yeah,
people...
you know, half the people didn't even know it was on the stage. You know, they're all out of their skulls.
Mm. So you're going to leave that behind. You don't need any more of that.
Well, you know, I don't like, you know, for instance, you know, I can be doing other nice things and relaxing instead of being in some sort of terrible motel in
somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere I don't want to be. I think my ego was fulfilled with that, you know, appearance. But at the same time, you know, I may do a show sometime, from time to time. Right. I like this sort of satellite idea.
That's not bad, is it?
Yeah, it's much better. You
Pretty
just sit
clever.
At home and... Yeah.
Exactly. It's possible, and you know this as well as everybody does, it's possible that all of you will be best known, not for your individual work, but because you were Beatles. Does that trouble you at all? No,
not at all. Not at all. Because, you know, who are we anyway? You know? I mean, even if they knew me as me, George Harrison, they don't really know me. It doesn't matter what they remember you for. It's really what you attain that's, you know, for your own personal self that counts.
What are you looking forward to now, George? What's got you excited at the moment? What are you looking forward to doing next? You've got Time Bandits coming out as a big movie, and you've got albums out. What's next?
I'm not too sure. There's a couple of movies that we may get involved with in England. See, I'm partners in a company, Handmade Films, which is the company that originally did the Python's Life of Brian. And it seems at this time in England that the film industry is not sort of doing very well, and so, you know, that's quite nice. We're able to back some people with some different ideas, or people who want to make films. Not everybody, but, you know, we can do 1 or 2 a year, and hopefully if we can at least break even on that, we can continue to do that. So in a way, that's quite nice. It supports some sort of artistic talent, and it gives the actors a job. The film industry, you know, it helps it to tick over.
Keeps it going. George, it's really nice. It's really nice meeting you, and it's awfully long distance, but it's nice meeting you like this. I hope we meet in person one day soon. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We'll be right back after this.